We will now have a round of group speakers to pay tribute to His Holiness Pope Francis, starting with Manfred Weber.
President, dear colleagues, for me personally, meeting Pope Francis and speaking with him was a lifetime honor and remains for me and for us as EPP Group a profound source of inspiration. His hope, his wisdom, his faith still speaks to all of us. It was a moment of deep sadness when we learned about his passing away, and we will miss him. Above everything, as our president already said it was always a person, the human being, which was in the center. He never spoke about migrants, he spoke about human being, and not about a prisoner, about a human being, not about a homeless people, about a human being. Christianity at its best. Everybody is important, recognized by God, and also has a perspective beyond our life on earth. In November 2014, when he was here speaking in this European Parliament 11 years ago, he spoke about the deep Christian identity of our continent. Europe without Christian roots is simply unthinkable. However, Christian values never were poor Christian symbolism. He did not look on the questions of what divides us in Europe. He was always committed to what unites us. Not race, not religion, and not social status are allowed to divide us. And that was also his red line to all extremists who were misusing Christianity for their egoistic interests. His Christian view on a human approach of a society was also for a dignified work, for a society where everybody feels involved, and an economy which also serves to the people's interests. And that's why our model of a social market economy was deeply rooted also in his Christian thinking. And finally, on this Christian democratic tradition, like my party is representing it, I also want to underline that he himself and all his predecessors in the 20th and 21st century was committed to the European integration. He was always arguing in favor of a united Europe, not as a functional entity, not as a cash machine, not as a huge market, but as a community with shared identity, united in the European way of life. In a letter addressed to the European People's Party group, Pope Francis wrote to us, and I quote, "To build Europe, it takes a strong inspiration, a soul. It takes dreams, it takes values and a high political vision. Ordinary management, good normal administration is not enough." That is what Pope Francis told us. And this is his legacy. This is his job description for us as European People's Party, also as a European Parliament. He rightly saw the European way of life as a path to a bright future and also our offer to the rest of the world. That's why thank you to Pope Francis.
Thank you very much. Now, Irache García Pérez.
Gracias, Presidenta. Hoy alzamos la voz en esta Cámara para rendir tributo al Papa Francisco, un hombre de fe profunda y coraje inmenso, que supo estar a la altura de los tiempos. Fue el Papa de los pobres, de los marginados y de los que se encuentran en las periferias de la sociedad. Tuve el honor de encontrarme con el Papa Francisco. Con su voz clara y su mirada compasiva nos recordó que la justicia social no es solo una opción, sino una exigencia irrenunciable. Señorías, la mejor manera de rendir tributo al Papa Francisco no es solo recordar sus palabras, sino cumplir con ellas. El 25 de noviembre del 2014, en este mismo Parlamento, nos pidió que construyéramos Europa sobre la piedra angular de la dignidad. Nos interpeló con preguntas que hoy siguen doliendo. ¿Qué dignidad es posible sin un marco jurídico claro que limite el dominio de la fuerza y haga prevalecer la ley sobre la tiranía del poder? ¿Qué dignidad puede tener un hombre o una mujer cuando es objeto de todo tipo de discriminación? ¿Qué dignidad podrá encontrar una persona que no tiene que comer o el mínimo necesario para vivir? O todavía peor, que no tiene el trabajo que le otorga dignidad. También nos exigió con firmeza cuidar la tierra, al decir que Europa ha estado siempre en primera línea de un loable compromiso en favor de la ecología. Al hablar de migración, nos suplicó no mirar hacia otro lado. No se puede tolerar que el mar Mediterráneo se convierta en un gran cementerio. Y en su último mensaje, Urbi et Orbi, levantó la voz por una paz justa y duradera en Ucrania y en Tierra Santa. Hoy hemos conocido su último deseo, y es que el papamóvil se pueda convertir en un hospital infantil para los niños en Gaza. Gran signo y gran deseo. Señorías, si queremos estar a la altura del legado, hagamos nuestras sus palabras. Abandonar la idea de una Europa atemorizada y replegada sobre sí misma para suscitar y promover una Europa protagonista y transmisora de valores humanos. La Europa que camina sobre la tierra segura y firme, precioso punto de referencia para toda la humanidad. Esa es la Europa que el Papa Francisco soñó que sea también la Europa que entre todos sigamos construyendo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Jordan Bardella.
Madame la Présidente, mes chers collègues, c'est avec gravité et recueillement que je prends la parole à mon tour pour saluer la mémoire du pape François. Parce qu'il est une figure universelle. Sa disparition aura ému au-delà des 1,4 milliard de catholiques dans le monde. Homme de foi, homme de dialogue et de paix, autorité morale rare dans un monde en perte de repères, le pape François le fut incontestablement. Son pontificat fut celui d'une attention constante portée aux plus fragiles et aux plus démunis. Que l'on partage ou non ses opinions politiques, ses prises de position, elles ont été nombreuses et multiples, le respect solennel dû aux morts nous oblige. En ce moment solennel, je veux redire avec fierté que la France, fille aînée de l'Église, n'oublie ni ses racines chrétiennes, ni le lien millénaire qui l'unit à la foi et à l'Église catholique. Ce lien historique et précieux fonde une part inestimable de notre identité, de notre civilisation, de nos valeurs et pour beaucoup de notre espérance. Que le pape François repose en paix.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Nicola Procaccini.
Grazie Presidente. A church that goes out is how Pope Francis has summed up the mission of his pontificate. A church that doesn't remain confined within its physical spaces, but instead open itself spiritually to the world. A church that reaches out to people, cares for them, even physically, wherever they may be. I've shared many of Pope Francis' messages, even those considered politically incorrect. But I would be hypocritical if I didn't also admit some different points of view, particularly regarding the governance of migration. I think that for some here, it's quite the opposite. Yet, despite our differences, Christianity represents all of us. It's the only cultural bond that still holds us together. It's the common root of Europe, even if the European Union denies it every day. In October 2020, Pope Francis wrote to us, "Europe, find yourself again. Rediscover your ideals, which have deep roots. Be yourself. Don't be afraid of your millennia-old history, which is more a window to the future than to the past." Addio, Papa Francesco.
Grazie. Now Billy Kelleher.
Thank you, Madam President. Sadly, Pope Francis' death did not come as a shock to most of us. Unfortunately, his health had been waning, and while we'd all hoped for the best, it was clear that his time was coming to an end. His time, however, as Supreme Pontiff was different, to say the very least. His recommittal to the Church, being a church of the poor, was profound and real. And while he could not make all the changes he wanted, he has, I believe, changed the Catholic Church for the better. His pontificate will be known as one committed to decency, human dignity, social justice, and the raising of those on the margins of society. On behalf of the Renew Europe Group, I want to extend my deepest sympathies to the 1.4 billion Catholics across the globe who are mourning over the loss, not just of their spiritual leader, but also of a man who lived each day committed to the service of the poor, the marginalised and the vulnerable. In 1918, the people of Europe welcomed Pope Francis to our shores as we hosted the World Meeting of Families. Pope Francis was welcomed with open arms and with deep respect by my fellow citizens. To everyone elected in this Parliament and to parliaments across the world who claim to profess the Christian faith, I would urge you to listen to Pope Francis' words and his teachings. There is nothing Christian about cheering when migrants drown in the seas. There is nothing Christian about making those on the margins fear for their safety just because they are different to us. Pope Francis' death is a loss to us all, whether we are Catholic, another Christian, practice another religion, or indeed non-believers. His humanity transcends denominations. Society has lost a great leader and a great teacher with his passing. Areste go raibh anam dílis.
Thank you. Next is Alice Kuhnke.
Standing by the Mediterranean Sea, which has become the final grave for so many people, Pope Francis asked, "Who wept for these people who were aboard the boat? For the young mothers who brought their babies? For these men who wanted to support their families? We are a society that has forgotten how to cry." Pope Francis reminded us of our humanity and asked us to overcome the paralysis of fear, the indifference that kills, the cynical disregard that nonchalantly condemns to death those on the fringes. Pope Francis daily calls to Gaza, and his final will to transform his Pope-mobile into a health clinic for Palestinians are testaments of his compassionate legacy. He said, "Children are not numbers. They are faces, names, stories, and each one is sacred." I will carry his words with me in committee meetings about deportations and into debates about humanitarian aid to starving children. I invite you all to do the same.
Thank you. Now Martin Schirdewan.
Christianity and socialism might not share the closest link at first glance, but Pope Francis used his mandate to advance the Christian social doctrine that is also deeply rooted in socialist politics. The fight for social justice and against poverty, one of the cornerstones of Francis' pontificate, remains a central responsibility for both the progressive left and the progressive church. Pope Francis has all my respect for always taking side for the vulnerable and for defending humanity and human rights for all, regardless of origin, status, color, or belief. And in an increasingly hostile world, Pope Francis' voice has constantly been one of peace. Relentlessly, he called for an end of the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. Every single day, he cared for the Palestinian civilians whose unjust suffering he felt painfully. Let's make his prayers for justice and peace a reality. Let's end politics of injustice and division. And I wish his successor all possible success in transforming the Catholic Church into a church for the 21st century. And I'd like to conclude in a rather secular way. I'm sure he would have understood. Farewell, Francis.
Thank you very much. Now, last speaker, René Aust.
Herren, im Jahre 2013 suchten die Herren Kardinäle einen neuen Papst und sie fanden ihn, wie er selbst sagte, am anderen Ende der Welt. Sie fanden einen streitbaren Hirten, einen Papst, der seine Kirche reformieren wollte und der wusste, dass echte Erneuerung im Herzen der Menschen beginnt. Über bestimmte Aspekte wie seinen Ansatz zum synodalen Weg wird noch lange diskutiert werden, doch dies ist nicht der Moment für Bewertungen. Heute halten wir fest, die Welt hat einen guten Menschen verloren, einen, der als Bischof von Rom diente, der nicht thronte, sondern tröstete. Sein Pontifikat war geprägt von seinen Erfahrungen als Seelsorger, von Bescheidenheit und dem Blick auf die Ärmsten. Möge Papst Franziskus in Frieden ruhen. Auch deshalb habe ich in der vergangenen Woche in der wunderschönen Kirche in Paris in Saint-Sulpice für ihn eine Kerze angezündet. Und mögen die Kardinäle im bevorstehenden Konklave eine weise Wahl treffen. Ich wünsche Ihnen dabei Gottes Segen. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much. So now